Hey, welcome back to the channel, my fellow weather junkies. I'm your host, Greg Majeski, your personal weatherman, bringing you the weather without all that social media hype. Here on your Saturday, September 7th, 2024. Let's go ahead and take a look at those latest weather headlines, shall we, for today, as I'm calling it a Midwest delight. Definitely feeling like a real taste of fall in the air. Some very nice temperatures here across the Midwest, Northeast especially. We'll show you that here in just a little bit with those temperatures. The temperatures will rebound across a big part of the country that's been dealing with below normal temperatures. Are going to come back up. And you folks in the West that are getting a little bit of the hot weather, there's some relief coming your way as well. We'll dive into that as well. And then we're watching the Gulf. We could be finally seeing Francine form this weekend. We'll go into specifics and the latest from the National Hurricane Center on that. Now, before we get rolling into this, first I want to say thank you to all the new subscribers to the channel. And if you haven't yet subscribed, come on board. Why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And if you appreciate the support, please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, helps out the YouTube algorithm to try to help build this audience. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the latest satellite imagery here for this morning as we got a frontal system here that's pressing here across the eastern third of the United States. Very quiet. Look how much of the country is so quiet. We have some thunderstorms down here in the Gulf, and we'll talk about these in a little more detail here a little bit. Some rains along the Gulf Coast, and unfortunately, you folks here across the Florida Panhandle and one of the coastal areas, we're just not going to get a big enough push to kind of clear that. It's going to kind of stay rainy and damp for that part of the country here for this weekend. Here's your frontal system. Boy, is it sweeping on down to the south. Look at these 40s. Even got a 37 out here, 37 up here into Minnesota. So, very fall-like, very refreshing air here coming in across the Great Lakes. So it's going to be very nice here across the Midwest. Eventually, this will sweep on through. Although we're going to linger some clouds, some rain across portions of New York State because of an upper-level feature up there, unfortunately. But, boy, it's looking very nice here in the middle of the country. The heat's going to continue out here on the west, and we're talking interior sections of California, Washington, getting into the hundreds out there as we look ahead. So looking right now at your watch warnings, look at it. Yeah, look at it. We got frost advisories, freeze warnings up here into Minnesota. So definitely cold air there. Again, we've got the heat here. We've got the heat advisories for Washington State, Idaho, and into Oregon. Bad quality air. Looks yucky up here, and still heat advisories here into California as well, dealing with the excessive heat. Let's go ahead and take a look at the radar here for this morning. Again, we're talking about the Gulf Coast. We've been dealing with some rainy conditions here, stretching from Port St. Joe, a few showers near Destin and south of Pensacola, but this area is going to really be kind of wet and rainy here for today. In fact, we can take a live look at the cam here in Destin, Florida, one of my favorite destinations here along the beach. Definitely not a good beach day here. Yeah, forecast today, it's going to be storms likely, rainy, and high temperature today. We'll be struggling to get around 80 degrees for an afternoon high. And hey, if you would like to nominate your city as the weather city of the day, and a good webcam on YouTube or somewhere else, please just go ahead and post that link down below. We'll go ahead and consider it for a future broadcast. All right, let's go ahead and switch over to the Storms Prediction Center. We're going to go ahead and take a look and see what they're expecting here over the next several days here as we look at things going on in that neighborhood. So as you're looking at right here, you're looking at your day one outlook. The good news here for today is the fact that we do not have any organized areas of severe weather. Now, you could never rule it out to zero, obviously, but generally just looking at a general thunderstorm threat here across the East Coast thanks to that frontal system. Maybe some air mass thunderstorms out here in the west, a little pocket here in Oregon and up into Washington State, but no marginal severe weather expected here for your day one outlook. And it looks like that trend's going to continue here into your day two as well. Just again, looking at just a couple areas there, seeing some general thunderstorms here across the southeast with that cold little pocket up here. You may get bubble up a couple of thunderstorms here across Michigan and Wisconsin. And of course, out here in the west, just a little bit, again, some scattered air mass thunderstorms possibility with the daytime heating there. And as we look at your day three, not going to change all that much, really. Still looking at the Gulf Coast states, looking at the chance of a few thunderstorms there with that proximity, that front there. And looks like a system here coming out here into the plains will bring in a scattered shower or thunderstorm potentially in that area. Little pocket there around New York State. So at least for the next 3 days for your weekend, we're talking Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, we're not anticipating any severe weather. That, of course, is subject to change. But for right now, we'll take that. That's pretty quiet. All right, let's take a look at your excessive rainfall outlook here. Now, this is a different story here as we're dealing with the excessive rain there across the Gulf Coast states. And it looks like that might linger here for a little bit, as that's your day one outlook. Got a couple of pockets out there in the west. Your day 2 outlook here as well. Again, watching Nevada, Utah, into parts of California and Arizona for your day 2, and along the Gulf Coast, South Georgia coast as well, going into day 2. And then finally going on to day 3, then we have to watch the Gulf Coast states into Texas. See that slight risk down there toward Brownsville. That's really going to be dependent on that tropical disturbance potentially coming there. And if we get something more inland later in the week, we could be looking at some excessive rainfalls returning along areas along the Gulf Coast that has seen quite a bit here over the last, say, week or so. It looks like some more rain definitely in the woods there in the cards. So we have to watch out there going into next week. Now, speaking of the tropics, we got to talk about the tropics. We got 2 areas of disturbed weather. We're about well out in the Atlantic, and then we're talking about the one there in the Bay of Campeche, Yucatan. What's interesting is that we've had 2 other named storms, Alberto, Charlie. Now we got this storm, 3rd storm to kind of potentially form in the same area, now the 3rd. And I think it's looking very probable, the best chance we've definitely seen here in weeks. Haven't had a named storm since August 21st, and this long drought in what's supposed to be the heart of the hurricane season it continues here in the Atlantic. The peak of the hurricane season is only 3 days away. So we're talking about September the 10th. We're supposed to be peaking out at that time, and it looks like we're continuing to stay that dry trend is definitely continuing here in the cards for the Atlantic is for right now. Now, looking across the Atlantic here, and I'm kind of got the wide perspective here, I got a few things I do want to kind of point out here. So let me pull this over here real quick. Is the fact that we're just not seeing any major wave activity out there right now. It is staying pretty much on the dry side. I'm going to let that loop on through. And again, not a whole lot of activity there across the intertropical convergence zone. One thing that's interesting out there, and I do want to bring this up, is the fact that, we're getting some waves and tropical rain activity out here in the areas up into upper part of Africa. That's just unusual to see that. But it looks like for the most part out here in the tropics, it is remaining pretty much quiet out here, not getting a whole lot of activity to form for right now. So we're just going to watch those 2 pockets, the one there in the central portion of the Atlantic, and then of course there in the areas there concerning toward the Bay of Campeche as we go over the next few days. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the European ensembles here. Again, none of the ensembles here on the east ends are showing any kind of development or perhaps a hurricane, anything like that. Might get a tropical storm there across portions of the right in here. Obviously, we're looking right there toward the Bay of Campeche, the extreme western Gulf of Mexico. This next wave out here is not showing any indications as well of it developing. And even if it does, I think it stays out in the Atlantic for this point. But none of these are showing any kind of real promise to becoming a significant storm at this point. The models have just been too inconsistent. I've seen the GFS go back and forth. Oh, we're going to have a big hurricane. No, we're not going to have nothing. We're going to have a big hurricane. No, we're going to have nothing. It's been very aggravating. So this is the 90L Invest. This is the one that's there in the western Gulf of Mexico. Noticing it's doing a little loop-to-loop there, traveling south and then kind of coming back toward the north. So in about 5 days, 120 hours coming up toward near Houston, 993 millibars. That means you probably got a tropical storm at that point with the pressure down that low. That'll bring us some heavy rain, some obviously we'll have some rough surf there in the Gulf of Mexico, and this moves up into Louisiana in 5 to 6 days. So we got a few days to watch this system to see how it progresses and how it behaves. Now, we'll say this much, as far as we look at the model data here, we're looking at the European model doesn't really do a whole lot here with that system. It does drift it to the south, but doesn't really develop anything out here. So we're not seeing anything here kind of lighting up in this zone right there as far as seeing anything of any significance developing right there on that model right there. But of course, watching this other disturbed area out here in the middle of the Atlantic, it also is showing limited development at this time on the latest overnight model on the European. So as this goes on through, I'll take it out for the rest of the 10 day. Looks like something tries to develop here off the South Carolina coast going into the following Saturday into next week, kicking off something that tries to develop out here. But again, a little disturbance here, but the intertropical convergence zone going in toward the 14th looks very quiet. What you're looking at is the sea surface anomalies. When you see that blue, that means you got yourself some low pressure and storm forming there. That's interesting. It kind of does a split there. I've never seen that before. It splits into two. It's like it cloned itself and moves on off. So that's the European model right now. Not showing a whole lot there. Let's switch over to the American GFS model. Got this a little bit closer here as it does something with that disturbance in the Gulf. It brings it down toward the Bay of Campeche, similar to what the Invest at 90 was showing you there. Brings it up along the coast here, drops the pressure down to 992 millibars, and then kind of moves inland here. So looks like a decent tropical storm, some heavy rains there for Houston, Galveston, and then making a landfall over near the Texas Louisiana border. Just kind of moves inland there, and it could provide some serious flooding there across portions of Louisiana if this solution was to hold true going into later in the week, into Wednesday and Thursday, if the American GFS model does verify with what could become Francine at that time. So that's the American GFS model. Let's go ahead and take a look at the what's going on across the continental United States. We're going to be looking at the jet stream. We're looking at that river air kind of drives things across the country. Obviously, your eyes are drawn to this big trough here in the east. That's what's bringing in the cool air down. That's what's going to bring those frost and freeze warnings for portions of Minnesota here for today. But as we go ahead and take a look at how this is going to progress, this trough's going to lift on out. So we're going to see this thing through the weekend. It'll be nice and cool and pleasant across the high plains, the Midwest, the Northeast. It'll move on out. When as it does so, as we go into, say, Wednesday, that's going to allow here temperatures here to really warm up here in the middle of the country. Now, the folks here in the West, you got a trough digging in here, so that's going to mean the folks here in Washington, Oregon, California has been dealing with these triple-digit temperatures here for this weekend. They're going to see things begin to change here a little bit, as we're going to see some cool air kind of move in out west. So that storm system will kick on out, dive in across the Intermountain region. That's going to cool the temperatures there, but it's going to be warming out in the east. This will kick out into the plains. Could see some thunderstorms maybe Friday, Saturday, although I will say the European model today is not nearly as robust as what it was showing yesterday. And then there's another trough digging down here, going into the Monday, the 16th. You got another trough coming in here. That'll bring that down. It also seems to tap something here out of the Pacific, charging it northward, kind of pulling a little tropical system northward. If that verifies out, that may actually put an end to the run of 100-degree temperatures there into Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix has been on a roll here, 100-plus days of 100-degree temperatures, and if that pulls that moisture into the southwest and that rain, that'll definitely put that streak to an end, to say the least, here as we head toward the 16th of the month. Let's look at the precipitation. We'll go and switch over to that here. Again, watch that timestamp in the upper right-hand corner as we look at the conditions here through the day here on your Saturday. Again, it's going to remain a little uncertain here. Obviously, we'll be watching what goes on with this disturbance down here. A little unsettled here across New England here on your Saturday. Thanks to that upper level feature there. And you can see the 540 line there to set a cold upper level core right in there for sure. Going to keep things a little unsettled for the Northeast. Now, as we go ahead through the rest of the weekend here through Sunday, again, that low kind of lifts on out. Most of the country is looking pretty quiet, except for the areas there in the Southeast dealing with that old stationary boundary. And obviously with the influence of that tropical system down there, that'll keep it unsettled there along the Gulf Coast. Now, as we go ahead and progress here through the rest of this model run, you'll see that we'll see whatever that tropical system is, will move inland. The European is showing that too. It's just a question of whether it becomes an organized system or not. So heavy rains along the Gulf Coast, Louisiana, going to Mississippi as we go in toward your Wednesday. That'll be a concern there. Finally got a system coming out here on the West Coast. That's what's going to break down that high heat out on the West Coast from Washington State down to California. We'll see some improvements there finally. And as we go ahead and progress this thing forward here, we're going to bring the rain across the Southeast. Alabama, Georgia needs the rain, that's for sure. We'll see that little disturbance here kicking out of the Intermountain region. Might see some marginal pockets of severe weather with that. Couldn't rule that out going into Thursday and Friday with that system. We're talking about the 12th and 13th there. And that pulls on, that finally kicks on out of the Southeast. We see improvement there going into the following weekend. Then we'll watch and see if this big trough picks up this Pacific system here and throws it into the Southwest as we go into Monday of the following day, at the end of the 10-day period. So if this solution holds out, it's still 10 days out. But you folks in the Southwest are hoping for a little bit of a break from that oppressive heat. It may happen as we got that next trough digging in here. and we throw some moisture in across the southwest thanks to the Pacific origin that should beat back that heat and that intensive heat out there in the west as we go into the 16th of the month. Heading toward the middle of the month, you might get a break coming your way. All right, let's talk about the rainfall amounts across the country here as we take a look at the big picture here. Again, you got pockets of this. Let me back this up and kind of zoom in so you can kind of see what happens here with the tropical system through the weekend, looking kind of wet and rainy along the Gulf Coast. You got that frontal system clearing, that upper low, keeping it unsettled there across the northeast through the weekend with some rainy weather up here. Obviously, the proximity of that stationary front down here to the south and that Gulf influence there will keep it a little unsettled there as well. But if you take this out for the duration, we'll watch the moisture come up from whatever that tropical system is there and really increases the rain there across the deep south into Louisiana, Mississippi, getting into Alabama there, and then finally kicks on out. So this will be the area of concern here for potential flooding here along the Gulf Coast with that serious rain effect there. Again, as we're watching that as we go through the next 10 days, we're going a little bit closer here, look at the southeastern portion of the United States here. We're going a little bit closer. You can see some of these rainfall amounts out 10 days of areas along the Gulf Coast. Could be a little bit higher. I mean, I think this might be a little underdone, but I've seen some pockets here offshore, 18 inches of rain. But onshore, it looks like 3 to 5 inches of rain for a lot of locations running right through there, thanks to that tropical moisture and that old boundary that's going to kind of hang up there for a little while. So definitely a little unsettled there for the southeast. So switching over here to take a look at the temperatures here. We're going to start by looking at the high temperatures, and I'll kind of pause them on the daily highs here for the next 7 days or so. And then we'll also look at the lows as well. So the high temperatures here today, definitely a bit steamy out here in the west as we're seeing temperatures out here, 107 in Phoenix, 103, 107 in the interior, 99 up towards Spokane. So very hot and steamy here in the west. If you want some nice heat, how about 62 in Chicago for your Saturday afternoon highs there, 65 up into Buffalo. Very nice. The nation's capital sitting about 76 degrees. So very, very nice weather there on your Saturday. As we go ahead and progress into your Sunday, again, look at these 59. Look at the interior sections here of New York, 55 degrees there. Very fall-like indeed. See temperatures rebounding here in the high plains and coming out of the Rockies as the 90s start to return a little bit. Here still interior section of Washington, looking at temperatures here in the 90s. Very hot and very steamy there in the southwest, obviously. As temperatures we're seeing into the triple digits down here as we go through your Sunday. And as we continue the trend here for the weekend here, as we go forward into your Monday, temperatures definitely start to rebound as we say goodbye to this pocket of very nice air here across the Midwest and the Northeast. Things are going to begin to warm back up again. So all good things got to come to an end. We're not officially in the fall just yet. That is coming. And we're going to see that heat to kind of be around for most of the country here as we go toward your Tuesday. Look at the 90s here in the middle of the country, through Nebraska and to South Dakota. The 90s back in here, 110 in Phoenix. But the good news is for you folks here in the West, we're starting to show indications here. See the 80s start to return in here where it's been sitting in the 90s. That is going to be the continued trend there as we're going to see the temperatures really get beat back here over the next 7 days. In fact, I'll just go forward a little bit here and take it out toward the following Friday. Look at these interior mountain conditions here. Seeing the 60s and 50s out here. I mean, 74 in Seattle is a lot better than the 90s you're seeing out there, but the plains are still going to be plenty warm here out in the foothills. 98 degrees, 93 in Amarillo, pretty warm there. The Midwest warming back up into the 80s and near 90 degrees as well. Texas seeing temperatures right around 90 there as we head toward the following Friday going into the 14th. And as we go through the next weekend, definitely noticeably cooler out here in the west. Big warm up here across a big portion of the middle portion of the country. And notice this 104 in Phoenix. We may actually see that come to an end here as we go into the end of the 10-day. Again, that's all dependent on if that tropical moisture comes up in here. I'll take this out to the end of this run here. But look at that as we go into your following Monday here. Actually, back it up one more day. Let's go back to that Sunday. Sunday's at 102. And then as we go forward here on your Monday, hey, look at that, 90 degrees. Finally get the end of that 100-degree temperature here. But it is plenty warm here across the big portion of the country here. Above normal temperatures we sitting in here. We got temperatures out west below normal, but the middle of the country kind of warm. Not too bad here in the Northeast, though. I mean, low 80s, 70s up in the Maine. That's not too bad, but we're definitely going to be seeing some steamy conditions there in the middle of the country for your daytime highs. Now, as far as your overnight lows are concerned, let's go ahead and switch over to that. Again, watch that timestamp in the upper right-hand corner. We'll take this out into your Sunday morning here. Look at these temperatures here in the 40s, 46 there in Columbus, Ohio. Get 40s down here in the Appalachians, looking pretty good. Lexington at 48, Chicago at 49, Detroit sitting at 45. Very, very refreshing indeed with that nice cool fall air. But that's going to start to slowly pull on out here as we look into your Tuesday morning. Still holding across New England there, but noticeably warmer here in the middle of the country as temperatures rebound back into the 60s here as we head in toward next week, going in towards your Tuesday. And as we progress forward here, again, we'll see things definitely changing out west. We're seeing noticeably changes here as we head toward Thursday. Look at the temperatures out here in the 40s and 50s here. Even the colder temperatures there in the mountains, seeing the mountains there dropping into the 30s there in California. But very, very warm and steamy here in the middle of the country. Mid 60s, not bad, but definitely in 70s down here along the Gulf Coast. Not bad here across the Northeast, 50s and 60s there on your Thursday for morning lows. That's pretty comfortable. Still not too bad there. And as we go into the rest of the week, going into Friday, again, big warm up here. Still staying pretty warm here in the middle of the country, upper 60s. There's a 71 for morning low in South Dakota. That's definitely above normal for this time of year. Going in toward Friday on that 13th there on September there. And then as we go into your Saturday morning, again, still 71 in Nebraska, still warm and steamy here. But look at the Intermountain, man. We got 47 in Idaho. Got the Intermountain region showing temperatures there in the 30s, seeing higher elevations. Seeing some of that blue. That's the 30s showing up there, that cold air across the west. Still steamy across the southeast, 72 there in Louisiana. Jackson at 72, Atlanta at 66. But still relatively okay here across the New England states in the 50s to around 60. That's not too bad for this time of year. Let's go ahead and take it out to the rest of this 10-day as far as temperatures are concerned. Still keeping it pretty warm there in the middle of the country. I mean, looking at your morning lows there on your Monday going into the 16th. Look at all these 70s in here. Still very, very summer-like here in Nebraska. 65 there in Des Moines. Nice out in the west. Still holding on to the cool air there, but definitely very warm with above normal temperatures there in the middle of the country. And looks like that'll continue to be the trend there as we head into Monday on the 16th. So very warm in the middle of the country. Nice little breakout here out in the west. And not too bad across New England, but definitely above normal here in the middle of the country. So we can kind of wrap this up by taking a look at the latest from the Climate Prediction Center and kind of see how that is coming to fruition there. Again, as the models were indicating here, above normal temperatures are expected where they're getting a nice cool down right now. The 6 to 10 day outlook, you got to pay the piper, got to pay back for that cool air from the 12th to the 16th. Below normal here only because of the cloud cover and the rain down here in the south. And again, that cool air finally moving out here in the west so we get a break from the heat that we're expecting here for the weekend. 8 through 14, relatively close to average here in the west. Big still time warm here from the 14th to the 20th. That's what that 10-day outlook going out the 16th was clearly showing this, with above normal precipitation here, temperatures, I should say, across the Midwest and into New England and there across the South. Precipitation-wise, a little bit of a change here from yesterday. We do pick up the rainfall activity here across the high plains back to the Intermountain region. Here, obviously along the Gulf Coast, and we're watching that tropical influence there as well, below normal there into New England. And days 8 through 14th, that's the 14th through the 20th, below normal in the east, a little bit unsettled here in the middle of the country, and near normal precipitation there in the Intermountain region for most other areas out toward the west. So we got some things to watch. We got a little bit of a topsy-turvy forecast coming your way here as we're going to be watching obviously the Gulf of Mexico to see if we're going to get Francine to form. It's looking a little more likely, but I'm not expecting a major hurricane at this point. That's the good news because those Gulf waters are pretty warm, but conditions are just not ultimately conducive for getting a substantial system, and it is pretty close to the coast as well. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, again, a lot of the experts are saying the second half of September, going toward the end of the month, may pick up in activity quite a bit, and we'll wait and see on that. We've been saying this all season long. It's been a very atypical, unusual hurricane season, to say the least, and I'll continue to keep a watchful eye on that. Now, hey, if you enjoyed this report, I try to make this a daily report as best I can and have it ready for you guys every morning. If you'd like to make this part of your YouTube feed, please just hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell down below, and leave me a comment. Give me a thumbs up. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. And please share it with your friends. I'd like to invite as many folks here to the product as possible to help grow a nice audience here in the YouTube universe. All right, that's your update here for your Saturday. You guys take it easy, be good, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.